California bracing for potential flash flooding and mudslides as a storm system sweeps the region.
A number of peculiar developments in the United States have started to garner notice from around the world. The nation's capital was hit by fierce storms. Strange lights appeared in several states, enigmatic ground fissures spread throughout the desert, and long-forgotten artifacts abruptly came to light. Many others are wondering the same disturbing question as a result of these events. What precisely is going on at the moment? Each incident may appear understandable on its own, but when taken as a whole, they start to create a pattern that is hard to ignore. Some observers refer to it as a coincidence. Others think it might be a sign that something more profound is happening right now. Please take a time to subscribe, like, and comment before we start, and come along as we explore what might be going on in the United States. To truly understand the scale of what we are facing, we have to look at the sheer intensity of the atmospheric shifts hitting our coastlines. Southern California is currently grappling with heavy floods so massive and sudden that many are drawing parallels to biblical accounts of the Great Deluge. It is not just about the water, it is about the feeling that the natural order is being rewritten before our eyes. While the West Coast drowns, the colder regions are experiencing something even more bone-chilling. In states like Wyoming, Montana, and Alaska, people are reporting terrifying sounds echoing from beneath the frozen landscape. It sounds as if bombs are exploding deep under the snow, shaking the very ground beneath people's homes. This isn't just ice cracking, it is a violent, rhythmic percussion that has experts puzzled and residents living in fear of what might break through the surface next. But this chaos isn't confined to American soil alone. Just recently, a strange beam of light suddenly struck a city in Chile, and the footage is nothing short of haunting. Witnesses recorded the moment a powerful light shot down from the sky, creating a massive flash that turned night into day for a fraction of a second. Some believe it could be experimental technology being tested in plain sight, while others think it might be something far more mysterious and extraterrestrial in origin. Back in the States, the Arizona desert, usually a place of silence and heat, has become a stage for violent electrical displays. Massive storms are rolling through the canyons with lightning so frequent and intense it looks like a continuous strobe light against the sand. It is as if the earth and sky are in a state of constant war. As we spend the next hour peeling back the layers of these global anomalies, you will see that these are not just isolated weather events. From the depths of the desert fissures to the blinding lights in the southern hemisphere, everything is connected. Stay with us until the very end, because the evidence we have gathered suggests that what we are seeing today is only the beginning of a much larger, more transformative event that will change our understanding of the world forever. According to many observers and geopolitical analysts, the United States is currently navigating one of the most complex and high-stakes periods of national stress in modern memory. This isn't just about one single crisis. Rather, it is a perfect storm where multiple significant problems are emerging concurrently, creating a sense of profound unease that mirrors the chaotic atmospheric shifts we see in our weather. We are witnessing a convergence of growing uncertainty about the future, relentless economic pressure, and escalating international tensions that seem to be pulling the nation in every direction at once. At the heart of this global instability is the looming specter of widespread conflict. The United States finds itself deeply entangled in a web of foreign issues that demand constant military, financial, and diplomatic energy. From the volatile sands of the Middle East to the fractured borders of Eastern Europe, American leaders are being pushed to a breaking point as they try to balance ancient alliances with modern security obligations. This isn't just a matter of policy. It is a massive drain on national resources. The provision of military hardware, humanitarian relief, and strategic intelligence to allies around the world comes with a staggering financial cost that many believe is becoming unsustainable. We are talking about billions in defense expenditures and international security commitments that place an immense strain on long-term financial planning, even when these measures are intended to preserve some semblance of global stability. While the nation's eyes are fixed on foreign battlefields, the American economy is struggling with its own internal battles. The cost of living has skyrocketed, leaving families to grapple with the brutal reality of inflation. Whether it is the price of a gallon of milk, the cost of heating a home, or the rising expense of transportation, every essential part of life now feels like a luxury compared to just a few years ago. The housing market in particular has become a source of national anxiety, as rent and mortgages climb so high that younger generations are being priced out of the American dream entirely. Even businesses are in a state of constant adaptation, trying to survive supply chain disruptions and the unpredictable swings of interest rates. Small businesses, the backbone of our communities, are feeling the heat most intensely, forced to raise prices just to stay afloat while consumers become increasingly cautious with every dollar. Historians often look at these rare moments in time, where internal political discord, economic hardship, and global warfare all collide, as periods of extreme national strain. These are the moments when a society begins to ask deep, fundamental questions about its leadership, its direction, and its ultimate survival. For many, these events feel like more than just history repeating itself. They feel like the fulfillment of ancient warnings. Biblical prophecy scholars are pointing with increasing urgency to passages that describe periods of global upheaval exactly like the one we are living through. In the Gospel of Matthew, there is a verse that resonates deeply with the rumors of wars we hear daily on the news. Matthew 24:6 warns, "You will hear of wars and rumors of wars, but see to it that you are not alarmed. Such things must happen, but the end is still to come." Many interpret this not as a single historical event, but as a recurring pattern of birth pains that precede a massive, world-altering shift. But as these political and economic tensions reach a boiling point, something even more unsettling has begun to emerge. Something that isn't being talked about on the nightly news. It is happening silently, beneath the surface of the earth, far away from the halls of power. If you think the economic pressure is the only thing we should be worried about, you need to stay tuned until the very end of this film. The events unfolding right now in the vast, arid landscapes of the Arizona desert are defying logic. In a place known for its stillness and open spaces, something has been recorded that is so bizarre it suggests a pattern that can no longer be ignored by anyone paying attention. In recent months, the very foundation of the Arizona landscape has begun to fracture in ways that defy conventional expectations. The desert floor has started to develop long fissures that go through places that were previously thought to be totally stable. Both locals and scholars studying the area have been taken aback by the way the ground has split apart in a number of places. These are not little soil fissures. We are talking about massive, jagged scars in the earth that look like the planet itself is being pulled apart. Deep lines that cut across desert plains are formed by some of the fractures, which stretch for dozens or even hundreds of meters. Sections of land have abruptly fallen in several places, creating enormous sinkholes where there was formerly solid ground. It makes you wonder, is this just a geological fluke, or is the Earth trying to tell us something deeper? I'd love to know what you think about this in the comments. Do you believe this is a natural cycle or something more ominous? The sight can be shocking to drivers who are navigating the area's dirt roads and isolated roadways. There are now obvious indications of movement in a landscape that appeared unaltered for decades. Dry dirt splits in uneven lines, leaving spaces large enough to cause detours or stop cars. It's a chilling reminder of the strange developments we've already seen, from the mysterious lights over Chile to the bomb-like explosions echoing under the snow in the north. These changes can be caused by a number of natural processes, according to scientists who research desert geology. Even in arid areas, subterranean water systems can occasionally gradually erode soil layers. The ground above may abruptly collapse if there is insufficient support beneath the surface. Sinkholes or lengthy fractures that cover wide areas may result from this mechanism. However, the sheer scale of these Arizona cracks has led many to question if the official explanations tell the whole story. There might be another factor at play in Arizona. According to some experts, subterranean infrastructure may gradually deteriorate as a result of groundwater pumping for urban growth and agriculture. The surrounding ground may compress or move when water is extracted from deep soil layers. Nevertheless, the public has been drawn to the visual impact of these fissures despite scientific reasons. Images that are making the rounds on the internet depict enormous holes on the desert floor, some of which are large enough for a person to stand within. When you see a person standing inside a gap that wasn't there yesterday, it changes your perspective on reality. It is evident how strong the natural forces beneath the earth are when one is standing close to one of these fractures. Have any of you experienced unusual ground activity or strange sounds in your area recently? Let us know below, because these reports are starting to surface globally. People are frequently reminded of things that are simple to forget in situations like this. The earth we walk on is not as permanent as it seems. Ancient civilizations often viewed these sudden shifts not as mere accidents, but as divine warnings that the very stability of our world is a fragile illusion. This ancient perspective is echoing louder than ever today. When we look at the sacred texts, specifically the imagery in the Psalms, we find a powerful description of a world in total upheaval, where the earth literally gives way and mountains are swallowed by the heart of the sea. It's a chilling parallel to the historic floods currently drowning Southern California. These scriptures weren't just writing about the past. They were warning future generations that the natural world is an unpredictable force that can reclaim the land at any moment. Curiosity and caution are frequently mixed together as fissures start to show on the desert floor, leaving us to wonder if the rumors of wars and economic shifts we discussed earlier are being echoed by the very ground beneath our feet. In order to quantify the changes, examine the soil, and comprehend the forces operating below the surface, researchers move in to confront a reality that is increasingly difficult to explain through traditional geology alone. However, the moment might seem remarkably symbolic to people who stand close to these enormous fissures and gaze down into the newly exposed earth. A spot that previously appeared to be entirely solid suddenly reveals secret movement below. What else might be going on across the nation if the ground itself is beginning to change? As we've seen in the Arizona deserts and the flooded plains of the West, the very skin of our world is peeling back, and what lies beneath is a history we thought was long buried. Unusual discoveries have recently brought unexpected attention to the past in many places of the United States. Things that have been concealed for generations are starting to resurface when water levels in some rivers and lakes change. It is as if the earth is being forced to vomit up its secrets. The finding of multiple ancient shipwrecks from the American Civil War is among the most striking examples. For over a century, these vessels had lain silently beneath dirt and water, hidden in the dark silts of the Mississippi and the coastal marshes of the Carolinas. Few people were even aware of their precise whereabouts for decades. However, some of these ships gradually reappeared when conditions in particular waterways altered. Along riverbanks where the water used to run considerably deeper, there are remnants of old buildings, rusty metal parts, and wooden beams. These skeletal remains of a divided era are haunting reminders that the foundations of our society have been shaken before. Every discovery provides a tiny insight into one of the most trying times in the nation's history. Along key rivers, thousands of ships were damaged or abandoned during the American Civil War. Many were transport ships that were used to ferry soldiers, supplies, and equipment between key areas. Parts of their construction beneath the surface were preserved because the water swiftly covered them when they sank or were purposefully scuttled. Some of those remains are now resurfacing almost 150 years later. Researchers have also found little personal belongings that belonged to the passengers on those ships during meticulous inspections of these wrecks. Remnants of lives interrupted by chaos. Perhaps most stirringly, soldiers' pocket-sized Bibles were among the relics found in a few places. Some of these books were remarkably readable despite the passage of time and exposure to water. Some of the pages were still intact enough to identify particular verses. In one such find, the mud-stained pages were turned to the final warnings of the New Testament, offering a message that feels almost too relevant for the uncertainty of 2026. Instead of just ancient ink, these words feel like a living pulse, specifically the profound promise in Revelation 22:12. It speaks of a swift return and a divine accountability, where every action is weighed and every soul is met with a just reward. It is a chilling thought that while our world seems to be fracturing, these ancient promises of a final resolution are floating to the surface. Many historians believe that the existence of these little Bibles merely illustrates how important faith was to many people's lives at the time. They were frequently carried by soldiers as a source of solace in unpredictable circumstances. However, the current rediscovery of these objects has also aroused broader interest. History and the present momentarily collide when artifacts from the past abruptly resurface. Standing next to an ancient vessel's exposed remnants, it becomes evident how much time has gone by. The wood that formerly made up a functional ship's hull is now brittle and worn. Iron fittings that were formerly sturdy enough to support large loads are covered in rust. However, the items found inside these wrecks provide a more subdued tale about the individuals who experienced those times. What do you think is the significance of these Bibles appearing now? Is it just a coincidence of receding waters, or is there a spiritual message intended for us today? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Reflection is frequently prompted when remnants of the past come to light in this way. They serve as a reminder that past does not entirely vanish. Sometimes it just hovers beneath the surface till it rises once again. If you find this deep dive into our uncovering history fascinating, please consider supporting our work. If you enjoy the depth of research we bring to you, you can now support us through a donation or super thanks. Your generosity acts as a huge motivation for us to keep digging deeper into these mysteries. I want you to know that I personally keep all of our supporters and their families in my prayers, asking for protection and wisdom as we navigate these strange times together. We will stay on this path as long as we have your support. Another dramatic scenario just took place over the nation's capital, while echoes of the past are emerging from beneath America's waterways. Please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe if you think these studies are fascinating, so we can continue to explore these occurrences with you. Stay with us until the very end of this video, because what happened in Washington, D.C. suggests that the atmosphere itself is becoming as unstable as the ground beneath us. A strong storm unexpectedly formed in Washington, D.C., taking many locals and tourists by surprise. What started off as a typical overcast evening soon turned into one of the most severe weather events that many observers could recall. Under a heavy gray sky, dark clouds drifted over the city's skyline, obscuring government buildings and landmarks. Strong winds started blowing across the streets in a matter of minutes, causing neighboring buildings' windows to rattle and debris to be pushed across sidewalks. Then the hail started to fall. The ice fragments appeared little and dispersed at first, but the storm quickly grew stronger. Larger pieces of hail began to fall on the city's streets, roofs, and parked cars. The sound of ice hitting pavement and metal reverberated through the streets. The scene was reported as chaotic by others who were strolling close to the National Mall. While others hurried to seek cover under trees or building entrances, others stopped in shock at how rapidly the weather had changed. Soon after, there was thunder. Deep rolling bursts of sound appeared to travel across the sky above the cap, not just a far-off rumble. According to witnesses, the thunder reverberated between buildings, intensifying the sound and giving the impression that the storm was stronger. Then came the climax of the night, a moment that froze the city in its tracks. The clouds over the city were ripped apart by a huge burst of lightning. The sky was instantly illuminated when the bolt struck close to the Washington Monument. The whole skyline seemed to shine for a moment. Several people who were nearby said the brightness was so strong that it briefly felt like daylight had returned. This wasn't just weather, it felt like an intervention. Strong storms frequently result in lightning strikes, which meteorologists frequently describe as electrical discharges that occur naturally within storm clouds. Strong charges accumulate inside the atmosphere as heated air rises quickly and collides with colder air. Lightning can appear with amazing intensity when that energy is released. However, those who witness such events personally are still profoundly affected. When you see the seat of power in the United States illuminated by a single, terrifying flash of light, it's hard not to look for a deeper meaning. Strong storms have been a source of contemplation in many civilizations for centuries. In the ancient Hebrew tradition, thunder was never just noise. It was described as the very resonance of the divine, a voice that could shatter cedars and strip forests bare. This is captured with haunting beauty in Psalm 29, which describes a glory that thunders over the vast waters, a voice that doesn't just speak, but strikes with flashes of fire. When you hear that deep, bone-shaking roll of thunder over the monuments of Washington, you realize that no matter how much we build, we are still subject to a much higher power. Many people in Washington that night just stopped and stared up into the sky as thunder swept over the monuments and hail hit the streets. Such moments serve as a reminder of the force of nature and the rapid changes in the atmosphere around us. Have any of you witnessed these daylight lightning strikes in your own city? It seems like these events are becoming more frequent across the country. Several regions of the United States have reported seeing strange lights in the night sky in recent months. The number of locations where comparable descriptions have been received, in addition to the lights themselves, is what makes these sightings noteworthy. Observers in a number of states noticed faint blue and violet light flashes far above the clouds late in the evening. Many initially thought they were witnessing far-off lightning. However, the movement of the lights appeared to be distinct from normal storm activity as more individuals saw. The lights seemed to travel horizontally across the sky rather than downward like regular lightning. This eerie horizontal movement is strikingly similar to the unexplained beam of light we saw in Chile, suggesting a global phenomenon that transcends borders. The high atmosphere was filled with thin, colorful streaks that slowly spread before disappearing. In several instances, dashboard cameras were used by drivers to film short videos while they were driving on highways. Additionally, times when the night sky suddenly sparkled with small pulses of color were captured by security cameras installed on buildings. People started posting their footage online in a matter of hours. The similarity of how the lights appeared in various states immediately attracted attention. The colors and patterns were strikingly similar, despite reports coming from areas hundreds of miles apart. Is this a sign of atmospheric collapse or something even more mysterious appearing in our skies? We are only beginning to scratch the surface of these events, and as we continue, the connections between the ground, the water, and the heavens will become undeniably clear.
Days of dangerous, drenching rain, proving West Coast storms are...
The United States has seen a string of startling and unheard-of incidents, each more unsettling than the last, creating a sense that the very fabric of our reality is beginning to fray. The country is seeing signals that seem almost biblical, from catastrophic storms tearing over the East Coast to the chilling reports of odd, unidentifiable creatures seen on snow-covered mountain ridges in the Rockies, echoing those mysterious bomb-like explosions we discussed earlier. From ethereal, angelic figures appearing in the clouds over the heartland to the deep, restless stirring in Yellowstone, it feels as if the Earth itself is in labor. As if creation itself is attempting to communicate, weird patterns are developing in the sky and ancient, unidentified structures are sprouting beneath the waves of our coastal waters, just as those Civil War wrecks surfaced from the river silts. The same eerie question is being asked by an increasing number of people. Is Jesus cautioning us? Are these the birth pains spoken of in the ancient prophecies? Before we analyze each sign and reveal its potential implications for America's future, I want to take a moment to speak to our community. If you find value in the work we do and the deep research we bring to light, please consider supporting our channel through a donation or super thanks. Your support is what allows us to keep digging for the truth in a world full of shadows. It motivates us to keep going, and in return, I want you to know that I keep every one of our supporters and their families in my prayers daily. I pray for your safety, your peace, and for wisdom as we face these uncertain times together. Please remember to like, comment, and subscribe to stay part of this journey. The specific event that pushed many over the edge of skepticism started out as a seemingly normal cold front moving over the Midwest. But as we are about to see, there was nothing normal about the darkness it brought with it. What do you believe these patterns in the sky represent? Are they atmospheric anomalies or something far more divine? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. The surge of Atlantic moisture hit with a violent, unforeseen intensity, morphing into a gargantuan nor'easter that shattered every model meteorologists had painstakingly built. The storm erupted from Kentucky to New England in a matter of hours, engulfing entire states behind a massive wall of snow, ice, and ferocious wind. A perfect white cyclone tightening around the country's most populated region was depicted on radar photos as a spiraling mass spanning hundreds of miles across the map. Even seasoned forecasters acknowledged that they had seldom witnessed such a rapid drop in air pressure. Something wasn't quite right. In fact, atmospheric pressure readings plummeted so low that they rivaled the intensity of Category 3 hurricanes, a phenomenon known as bombogenesis, occurring at a speed that has historically happened only once every 50 years. Over 20 million Americans were under severe weather advisories by daybreak. As schools shuttered, airports closed, and highways became a battlefield of frozen chaos, cities braced. The storm wreaked havoc along the famous I-95. Under crosswinds, semi-trucks toppled like toys. SUVs slid into guardrails from the side. Smaller vehicles whirled helplessly into deep ditches loaded with snow. Reports of pileups, jackknifed rigs, trapped families, and cars buried beneath blowing snow were constantly crackling on police scanners. The blizzard's ferocity reduced visibility to nearly nil, making it difficult for emergency personnel to reach victims. As we look toward the winter of 2027, many experts fear that these black swan, Weather events will no longer be rare anomalies, but the new standard, potentially forcing a total redesign of our national power grids and emergency response protocols to survive a climate that seems increasingly hostile. The same horrifying sound was reported by locals from Maine to Virginia. The howl of an apparently living wind that rattled windows, bent trees to the breaking point, and pushed against buildings with fists of ice. Oceans crashed over seawalls in coastal communities, flooding the streets with icy water laced with debris. As temperatures dropped, power grids gave way under the weight of ice-laden lines, leaving neighborhoods in complete darkness. Within the storm clouds, some villages reported thunder, snow, and powerful lightning flashes that turned the sky an unsettling electric blue. It had a post-apocalyptic feel. Have any of you ever been caught in a storm where the wind felt less like air and more like a physical, conscious presence? Tell us your experience in the comments, because these living winds are being reported with terrifying frequency. To many who watched the unfolding of ancient prophecy, this was no mere meteorological mishap. It was a profound spiritual awakening. They looked to the warnings of the great teacher, who spoke of a time when the very elements would turn against the world, where the roar of the sea and the chaotic crashing of the waves would leave nations in a state of absolute perplexity and distress. This nor'easter was more than a natural calamity. It was a rhythmic pulse of the birth pains described in the sacred texts of Luke 21:25. It was impossible to overlook the symbolism as the globe approached the end of the age. The storm was not just a disruption of travel, it was a disruption of the soul, a divine signal for a nation to pause and look upward. The confluence seemed eerie, like a warning from creation itself. The destruction along the east coast was evident as the storm finally started to weaken. However, the spiritual uneasiness it aroused was perhaps more profound. That morning, the only sounds in the mountains were wind, snow, and the steady crunch of boots. However, two hikers saw something that stopped them cold. Two shapes appeared through the blowing snow far across the Montana-Wyoming ridge. They were moving with an accuracy that no natural animal should have, and they were standing straight. What the camera captured was a violation of everything we know about biology. Two tall, reptile-like creatures stroll confidently on two legs, their long tails swaying for balance. Their motions were clearly synchronized, fluid, and almost predatory. The shock was greatly intensified by their estimated height of 7 to 9 feet. Snow burst beneath their feet as they walked across the ridge, spreading organically in real time. By 2027, the discovery of such apex cryptids in our national parks could trigger a massive shift in how we view the wilderness, potentially leading to restricted access to certain mountain ranges as the government struggles to classify what these beings actually are. Shortly after, a low, guttural, metallic sound that was unlike any elk, wolf, or bear's cry swept through the valley. It was described by hikers as a sound that seemed to tremble inside their ribcage. They cited Matthew 24, in which the forewarning of terrifying sights and great signs from heaven precedes the final curtain call of history. Is something long concealed being revealed by creation itself? Is it possible that the lines between the natural and supernatural worlds, as well as the past and present, are becoming less distinct? The mystery is only heightened by the timing. The East Coast was first consumed by a historic nor'easter, and these enormous creatures then emerged on snow-covered mountains just days later. Keep watching, because the convergence of these events suggests that the veil is thinning, and what comes next is far more bizarre and disturbing. This time, the gaze of the nation shifted far above Colorado's clouds. The sky itself seemed to be reacting to the unsettling movements observed on Earth, and what emerged next felt entirely different from a storm or a prehistoric beast. At dusk, a glowing humanoid figure was captured crossing the top of a massive thundercloud. The moment started in eerie silence. As the sun sank behind the mountains, thunderheads piled onto the horizon, coated in deep golden violet. Families had gone outside to record the approaching storm, unaware they were seconds away from an image that would send shivers down their spines. A burst of lightning behind the cloud wall revealed a bright, upright, human-shaped silhouette that was clearly walking across the vapor. Unlike a shadow, the figure was not warped or distorted. It had a distinct form and seemed to be illuminated from within, shining brilliantly along its edges. There was a slight shimmer with every step, glimpses of light moving across the top layer of clouds before vanishing. A little-known atmospheric fact is that at these altitudes, crown flashes can occur, where ice crystals realign in electric fields, but even this fails to explain a stable bipedal form moving with such deliberate human intent. Repetition was what made the moment unavoidable. The same individual was seen in the same position, taking the same measured steps in dozens of videos from various towns. This removed any chance of lens flare or camera manipulation. Witnesses' reactions were similar to the emotional shock caused by the ridge creature in Montana, but they were more reverent than fearful. Some were forced to kneel, others silently prayed in hushed tones. Many reported hearing a low, resonant trumpet-like hum that sounded like a far-off horn echoing through the atmosphere. According to one witness, the sound was like the sky itself breathing. Have any of you ever seen a light in the sky that felt less like a star and more like a presence? We want to hear your stories in the comments, because these sightings are defying everything we thought we knew about our atmosphere. The surge of biblical parallels followed immediately. Those who had been talking about the reptile-like creatures in the Wyoming wilderness suddenly focused on another set of ancient scriptures. The vision of Ezekiel comes to mind, where luminous entities are described moving above the firmament, glowing like burnished bronze in the heart of a whirlwind. Instead of just ancient metaphors, these accounts now feel like eyewitness reports of the very things we are filming on our smartphones. In the book of Revelation, we are warned that in the final days, heavenly messengers will traverse the heavens as a sign to all nations. When you see this shimmering figure walking above a 40,000-foot storm, it feels impossible to ignore the synchronization of heavenly events with earthbound abnormalities. As Luke 21 predicts, these are the signs in the sun, moon, and stars that indicate the arrival of a massive spiritual turning point. Explanations were promptly provided by skeptics, citing military projections or ice crystal reflections. None, however, matched the evidence. Projection was impossible due to the cloud height alone, which was nearly 8 miles high. At such an altitude, meteorologists acknowledged that they were unable to find any natural mechanism that could produce a stable, walking humanoid form. Is something attempting to capture our interest? This shimmering figure was more than simply another mysterious occurrence. It inspired wonder, whereas the animals on the mountain inspired dread. If the nor'easter was nature rousing the country, this figure was a distinct alarm from above. Another warning was emerging from deep within the earth while these indications appeared in the sky. Unsettling signs of life have started to appear in Yellowstone, a sleeping giant long thought to be at rest. Yellowstone has been steadily rising by 1 to 2 inches annually for years. Initially, scientists considered it a minor geological variation, but the uplift has persisted relentlessly, making certain areas of the ground bulge as if something were pressing from below. Beneath that rising earth are 2 enormous lava chambers with enough molten material to cover the Grand Canyon 11 times. A major Yellowstone event would not just be a local disaster. It would send ash blankets across the entire continent, burying states like Utah and Colorado under thick gray powder and plunging the world into a volcanic winter that would collapse global food supplies. This isn't internet conjecture, it is the reality of scientific modeling. There are more and more warning indicators. Hundreds of microquakes pulse through the area, and the steamboat geyser is now hyperactive, erupting with a frequency that has park officials quietly concerned. But the most unsettling indication comes from the locals who report a deep, constant harmonic hum at night. This sound is what seismologists call a harmonic tremor, the Earth's equivalent of a warning breath before magma begins to move through a system. Even the wildlife seems to sense the danger. Wolves, elk, and bison have been observed leaving the area in strange, synchronized migrations, abandoning lands they've used for generations. When the animals flee, should we be paying closer attention? The signals are clear to those who follow prophecies, echoing Old Testament accounts of the earth trembling before a significant spiritual shift. Christian leaders have warned that a great shaking will emerge from the heart of America. The imagery from Joel and Revelation, fire, darkening skies, and columns of smoke, now seems more literal than ever. The increasing pressure beneath Yellowstone seems to be a spiritual shaking intended to awaken a country that is straying further away from God. If you find these connections between geology and prophecy important, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe so we can continue to track these developments together. Long before these sky phenomena attracted attention, researchers surveying the ocean floor off the U.S. coast discovered something that defied all expectations. Stretching farther than drone cameras could record was an enormous terrace stone construction concealed beneath the waves. Architecturally precise stacked platforms, exact angles, and perfectly straight lines were revealed by sonar. Geometry like this is almost non-existent in nature. Large stone steps, wide terraces resembling plazas, and shattered columns were strewn about like the remnants of an abandoned monument. It looked less like a reef and more like the blueprint of a pre-flood city. Sediment analysis suggests the structure has been submerged for over 10,000 years, challenging every core timeframe of history. For theologians, this brings up long-forgotten memories of a world before the Great Deluge, a time when civilizations were wiped clean from the earth. What we are seeing is a collision of the past and the future, a world being reshaped from the sky above, the ground below, and the depths of the sea. The remnants found beneath the waves, terraces, seawalls, and what appeared to be the foundations of massive buildings were unmistakably similar to a blueprint of a world we were never supposed to see. Some speculated that it might be connected to a pre-flood civilization, similar to the enigmatic societies briefly mentioned in Genesis prior to the catastrophic flood. These aren't just ruins. They are a direct challenge to our understanding of time. Discussions in academic circles were triggered by the notion that something sophisticated had formerly existed there and was subsequently buried beneath rising seas. One staggering fact that many experts are whispering about is that the stone blocks in these underwater plazas show signs of vitrification, meaning they were subjected to heat so intense that the stone turned to glass, a feat nearly impossible for ancient tools to achieve. Pastors and prophetic educators, meantime, provided heartbreaking reports in response to the terrible flash flood crisis in Texas. The United States has seen a surge of horrifying events, happenings that are so remarkable that millions of people now wonder if they are just coincidences or if Scripture itself is a warning from God. A scorching pit breaking apart the earth as if revealing a portal to the underworld, and a huge sea creature rising from the deep alongside trumpet-like blasts shaking the sky, all appeared in quick succession. Biblical scholars point to the real-time fulfillment of ancient predictions as science seeks to provide solutions. Are these the indications that Jesus mentioned in Matthew 24, the telltale signs of a planet nearing its end? What do you believe is the purpose of these signs appearing all at once? Is it a call to change or a final warning? Let us know your perspective in the comments. Please remember to subscribe to the channel, leave a comment with your opinions, and like this video before we start so you won't miss what comes next. The Earth's foundations were not shaken by the first sign, nor did it fall from the sky. It sprang from the depths, which the Bible frequently refers to as the line separating the visible and invisible. Fishermen saw the waters below them changing in a way they had never seen before, just after daybreak when a soft glow touched the Pacific horizon. As if the sea itself were being forced open, what had started off as a peaceful disturbance quickly turned into a furious heaving. Then it appeared. A creature with a massive fish-like tail, thick and muscular, rose from the depths like a war drum. It was longer than any known whale and heavier than any known shark. Sunlight struck its scales as it raised its massive bulk out of the water, making them shine like molten metal and stinging the men's eyes. Imagine standing on a small boat and seeing a creature whose scales reflect the sun like a polished shield. Would you feel fear or a strange sense of awe? Its head had a more frightening, archaic appearance. A line of sharp teeth, each reflecting light like polished steel, curved outward like shattered spears. Biblical historians were quick to identify this beast not as a random animal, but as the legendary Leviathan, the monarch of the abyss mentioned in the ancient songs of Psalm 104. This isn't just a sea monster. It is described in Job 41 as a creature of such terrifying power that no human weapon can pierce its hide, a living testament to the untamable forces of the Creator. To see it rise now in our time feels like the sea is giving up its most ancient prisoner. The fishermen maintained that the creature's actions were not typical. It didn't run away, it refrained from attacking. Watching, it circled gently, staying close enough for them to sense its presence. This was the thing that many found most disturbing, its slow, seemingly intent motions, as though acknowledging the spectators who were selected to witness it. Residents around the coast had already noticed deep hums, rhythmic pulses, and sensations rising through the hulls of their boats hours before the beast appeared. These disruptions coincided with pressure anomalies found in seismic zones, suggesting that whatever was upsetting the Earth might also be upsetting the sea. The public's response was mixed after the video went viral. According to others, it is a biological rarity that was pushed upward by geological changes as a vestige of deep-water evolution. Others, however, came to a different conclusion after observing the timing, the behavior, and the prophetic symbolism. This wasn't a coincidence. This was an indication. The sea is frequently associated with times of divine revelation in the Old Testament. From the giant fish that redirected Jonah to the parting of the Red Sea, the water has always been a stage for the supernatural. The arrival of this beast feels like a chapter of that ancient story is finally being completed. The second sign came just as the monster had vanished under the waves. This time, it comes from the ground beneath America's feet rather than the ocean. Reports started coming in from several U.S. shores within hours of the startling image. As though something below was pushing upward, the ground was breathing, rising, and altering. A resident in Oregon observed that her kitchen's tiles bent slightly upward, forming a gentle arc that disappeared the following morning. Beachgoers in Southern California experienced an odd upward pressure beneath the sand, as if the shoreline were expanding like a lung. This breathing earth phenomenon is actually being tracked by GPS stations across the West Coast, which have recorded vertical ground shifts that defy all known seismic models. The most concerning event, however, happened in a peaceful neighborhood close to the Pacific coast, when the ground beneath a number of houses moved slightly, causing furniture to tilt and baseboards to crack. These odd movements were similar to an incident that was reported in Bayview, San Francisco, where a resident's apartment floor lifted by over an inch without any earthquakes, storms, or building activity. Engineers were perplexed at that point. However, a pattern was starting to emerge as the same behavior started to occur in several states. Inland moisture levels unexpectedly increased. Sensors that had previously displayed normal readings abruptly recorded rising groundwater pressure. Have any of you noticed your doors sticking or cracks appearing in your walls for no reason lately? These small shifts might be part of a much larger national movement. Scientists had long cautioned that water was inadvertently being forced upward through layers of unstable soil by the huge seawall projects. Now hundreds of miles distant, similar symptoms were showing up. Dry areas felt moist. Basements started to perspire. After weeks without rain, soft patches appeared on the roads, followed by sideways shifts. In the past, highway maintenance workers have detected movement that was so minute that it didn't seem to matter. However, that was prior to numerous American towns reporting the same unnerving drift, roadways that swerved, sidewalks that nudged, and painted lines that were no longer in line with their original paths. Like a massive hand beneath the surface pushing the soil in slow, rhythmic pulses. Geologists found an unmistakable association between the timing of these events and the creature's emergence offshore. This physical upheaval mirrors the spiritual warnings found in the words of Isaiah, who spoke of a time when the earth would be utterly broken and shaken exceedingly. The shaking we are seeing now isn't just about plates shifting. It's about a foundation that we thought was permanent being revealed as temporary. When the ground beneath your feet becomes a moving wave, it forces you to look for a foundation that cannot be moved. America is accustomed to earthquakes after all. It was the origin that scared individuals. This wasn't random, natural, or seismic. It seemed smart. Whispers spread swiftly. Are the same invisible forces that drove the creature from the deep causing the earth to react? Is there a rise that is not yet visible to humanity? Now don't turn away. Everything will alter as a result of what occurs in Section 3. Click like, leave a comment below, and move on to the next section. Residents of California, Nevada, and Texas went for their phones in uncertainty late in the afternoon as sunlight turned copper over the western horizon. At that moment, a long, metallic, deep, resonant blast swept across the air, clearly intentional. It didn't sound like thunder, airplanes, or any other natural atmospheric phenomenon they had ever encountered. It had a trumpet-like sound. The initial recordings were made in a peaceful area close to Los Angeles. The sky vibrated like a horn for over 3 minutes, causing windows to shake in their frames. The neighborhood's dogs started pacing, whining, and hiding under tables. Birds abandoned their typical evening flight patterns and launched themselves from trees in furious spirals. The similar phenomena reappeared in Reno, Nevada, within an hour. The air itself seemed to tremble as commuters stopped on the highway. Everyone agreed that the sound felt directed, as if the sky were giving a warning. Some called it mechanical, others ancient. Then Texas arrived, still recuperating from the catastrophic flash flood that occurred in July. The same blast reverberated through the sky, sounding like a horn to the locals. Atmospheric scientists have a theory called skyquakes, but they admit that these sounds usually last seconds, not the sustained, melodic minutes reported across these 3 states. Animals were the first to notice it. Cats ran and arched in search of cover. Horses bumped into their stalls. Ranch dogs would not leave their owners' sides. The slight but noticeable change in ambient pressure caused elevators in downtown buildings to momentarily slow down, confusing their sensors. In the vicinity of California's geothermal fields, these symptoms were also reported. But this time, there was just the sound and the sky, no machinery, no drilling, and no seismic discharge. Biblical scholars were instantly reminded of the promise that a shout and the blast of a heavenly trumpet would one day signal the ultimate intersection of heaven and earth. In 1 Thessalonians, we are told that the voice of the archangel and the trumpet of God will announce a moment that changes history forever. As these sounds echo from the Pacific to the plains of Texas, the question is no longer if things are changing, but how much time we have left to prepare. Because the Lord himself will descend from heaven using the trumpet of God, the voice of the archangel, and a cry. After being studied for a long time as part of end-time prophecy, the verse suddenly became more literal and less metaphorical. People repeatedly played the recordings in living rooms, churches, and classrooms, asking the same uncomfortable question each time. Are these the first notes of anything holy, or are they the sounds of nature? During the explosions, some people reported feeling an overwhelming sense of presence, as if invisible forces were moving just beyond the visible sky's veil. Others were filled with fear, while others were in awe. One fascinating fact that science struggles to reconcile is that these sounds were recorded at the exact same decibel level across 3 different states simultaneously, something physically impossible for any known man-made or natural acoustic source. However, no one could ignore the nation's growing collective instinct. These trumpets weren't chosen at random. They weren't coincidental. They have nothing to do with humans. Many started to think that a prophetic call had begun with the explosion, an indication that the signals of water, earth, and now sky were moving more quickly. The invisible line separating the material world from the spiritual realm appeared to be getting thinner with every new sound, as though it was getting ready for a revelation that had not been heard in millennia. Have any of you felt a sudden, inexplicable sense of waiting or urgency in the air lately, even when things seem quiet? Share your feelings in the comments below. An unsettling quiet descended upon the Midwest as the last trumpet blow faded into oblivion. The air felt heavy for a few odd seconds. It was so heavy, according to multiple witnesses, that it seemed as though the sky was holding its breath. However, it wasn't the skies getting ready to shift. The ground was the source. A deep rumble echoed across a peaceful rural village minutes after the sound had subsided. At first, the sound was perceived by the locals as the arrival of a big vehicle, but it grew louder and reverberated through the ground like a pulse. The ground then started to rise and fall rhythmically rather than violently, similar to the breathing earth phenomenon reported in San Francisco. A number of individuals went outdoors in confusion as groundwater pressure increased behind the city's seawall. They observed as fissures appeared along the pavement and grew symmetrically out of place. After swelling once and twice, the ground gave way. The soil was ripped apart by a giant sinkhole that spiraled downward as though something enormous had clawed its way up from underneath. This spiral formation is a signature of vortex displacement, a rare phenomenon where the Earth doesn't just fall. It is actively pulled downward by a localized gravitational or pressure-based vacuum. When the unusual lateral soil changes occurred in Dog Patch, geologists saw the same pattern of dust exploding into the air and spinning in a vortex. However, the pit's bottom caught fire before anyone could comprehend what was occurring. Fire shot up into the sky in a column. It wasn't the usual methane ignition or the haphazard flare of dry brush. Narrow and concentrated, the flames flew straight skyward as though pulled by an unseen power. Many were reminded of the imagery in Revelation 9, when the abyss opens and smoke occasionally rises as from a big furnace, while the heat shimmered in eerie patterns and twisted into shapes. In the biblical narrative, the opening of the deep isn't just a geological event. It's the breaking of a seal, a moment where the physical world is forced to confront the spiritual forces it has ignored for centuries. When you see a pillar of fire rising from a perfectly symmetrical pit, you realize we aren't just looking at a sinkhole, we are looking at the breath of the underworld. There was a strong metallic resonance coming from the hole, according to some observers. There was a vibration, a hum, a tone that was almost melodic and nothing like wind or gas. Although methane does not produce whirling flame vortices, scientists who hurried to remark pointed to methane pockets in deep soil levels. Methane does not correspond with pressure charts that are almost comparable to the sideways groundwater movements, nor does it follow rhythmic pulses. Researchers at Berkeley discovered months earlier in California. Those who stood there and felt the heat said this was not geological randomness. The entire community, according to the locals, felt called upon as if the ground had reacted to the trumpet blow in the same manner that the oceans had reacted to the creature's rise earlier that morning. Many reported experiencing an overwhelming sense of presence, as if something old and invisible had come to life beneath the surface. Skeptics were disturbed, too. The timing, the fire, the symmetry, and the sound all suggested a pattern that went much beyond typical tectonic activity. What do you think is coming next? If the sea, the sky, and the earth have all spoken, what is the final sign? Let us know your thoughts. Remember to subscribe to the next chapter, like the video, and leave a comment if this made you uncomfortable. Sensors hidden deep beneath California were alerting people that something far older and deeper had started to stir long before the sea creature ascended, and the trumpet blasts rolled over the sky. Month after month, the Clear Lake volcanic area, which has been researched for a long time but is rarely feared, suddenly erupted with activity. Instead of ash or lava, thousands of tiny tremors rippled across the crust. These were not the usual earthquakes that people in the West were accustomed to. They arrived in groups, faded, and then returned with increased intensity, showing no discernible pattern. The source indicated the geothermal infrastructure braided into the bedrock rather than spontaneous tectonic movement. To capture its heat, wells had been sunk deep into the ground for decades. Steam was removed, water was introduced, and pressure was controlled. It was a control-oriented system. However, the reading now revealed something different. The ground was operating independently. A troubling alignment in the data was observed by monitoring teams throughout Clear Lake. The time frame of the sea creature's appearance offshore and the trumpet-like explosions heard throughout the western sky precisely coincide with the spikes and earthquakes. It's as if the planet has its own nervous system, and a single, massive nerve impulse just fired through every domain at once. Strange feelings were reported by locals who lived above the quake clusters. Walls knocking softly in the middle of the night, cabinet doors trembling before daybreak, floors shifting softly beneath their feet. Communities close to geothermal installations had previously encountered these symptoms during generated seismicity outbreaks, but this time seemed different. It was stronger, more synchronized, and deeper. It was more like the crust itself was starting a new cycle of instability than isolated responses to human infrastructure. The earth beneath Clear Lake was rearranging, changing pressure, and transferring energy in ways that their models had never taken into consideration. According to geologists who reviewed the data in secret, some believed that a delicate equilibrium had been upset by decades of tapping into the volcanic area. Others were certain that the system was utilizing a natural process that was unaffected by humans. The conversation took a prophetic turn throughout churches and prayer groups. Sermons and discussions recalled Romans 8:22, where the entire creation is described as groaning in the pains of childbirth. These tremors weren't just the shifting of rocks. They were the moans of a world in labor, a planet reacting not only to physical forces, but also to events that seemed more and more biblical in scope. For many, these tremors were the physical manifestation of a spiritual stretching, a world being pulled toward a destiny it cannot avoid. Every domain is responding, every realm is changing, and humanity is seeing the first signs of a pattern that predates civilization itself. Another type of report started to emerge as experts frantically tried to explain the roaring sky and the trembling earth. At first, it was quiet, murmured during church meetings at midnight and prayer groups. However, as the hours went by, the murmurs developed into testimonies, which in turn became indisputable. The heavens were now sending messengers if the land and sea were giving alerts. It started during a late-night prayer service in a small church in Northern California. The unusual trumpet sounds earlier that day had brought the church together in search of solace. Soft wall lamps were the only source of light in the dimly illuminated sanctuary. A dazzling brightness filled the room as the people prayed. From the ceiling, a slender column of white light extended downward till it touched the area close to the altar. A number of onlookers gasped. The light did not expand like a spotlight, nor did it flicker like electricity. It shimmered with an indescribable clarity as it stood motionless. Optical experts have noted that solid light phenomena, where light appears to have volume and density, cannot be replicated by any current LED or laser technology without a medium like thick smoke. Yet the air in this sanctuary was crystal clear. The pillars' edges bent slowly, taking on the appearance of a human person, an angel with wings, shoulders, and a bowed head. A gentle wind blew through the sanctuary before anyone could say anything. Papers fluttered. The windows were closed, yet a few leaves on a bouquet of flowers rustled. The doors were secured. The space was closed off. However, the warmth of the wind penetrated the skin, reducing anxiety and terror. Many felt tears well up without knowing why. A choir was practicing in a different room down the hall. Suddenly, harmonics they did not create joined their voices. Overlapping the song were notes that sounded like 1,000 gentle bells stitched into a single tone. They were clear, resonant, incredibly exact, and neither human nor recorded. Overwhelmed, the choir director fell to her knees. The church rapidly became aware of it. When people hurried into the main sanctuary, they discovered that a gentle golden haze was hovering above the pews and that the air itself was shimmering slightly. Have any of you ever felt a presence so strong that it physically changed the temperature or the light in the room? We are building a map of these events, so please share your story. Witnesses reported feeling as though they were standing inside a living light that was warm, weightless, and brimming with tranquility. Despite the fact that no one was standing behind them, some claimed to have felt hands on their shoulders. This physical touch from the unseen is a direct echo of the ancient promises that we are never truly alone, even when the world outside is falling into chaos. In the scriptures, angels are sent not just to announce, but to protect, to stand as a wall between humanity and the darkness of the hour. As the pastor read from the Psalms, declaring that God gives his angels charge over us, the fear that had gripped the community since the first trumpet blast began to melt away. This wasn't just a sighting, it was a sanctuary. Many dropped to their knees, realizing that while the earth may shake and the sea may roar, there is a kingdom that remains unshakable. As we look at these staggering signs in the earth, the sea, and the heavens, a single question remains. Are we truly ready for what comes next? In the midst of this growing shadow of uncertainty, I want us to pause for a moment. I promised you that I would pray for your protection and for your families, and as we reach the end of this journey today, I am going to fulfill that promise. This isn't just a script. It's a heartfelt plea for peace and safety for every single person who is a part of this community. Eternal Creator, we come before you today with hearts that are heavy but full of faith. We have seen the signs, the earth fracturing beneath our feet, the ancient beasts rising from the abyss, and the celestial trumpets echoing through the clouds. We know that the world is changing, and for many, that change brings a paralyzing fear. But today, we stand on your ancient promises. We claim the protection of Psalm 91 over every household watching this video right now. We ask that you become a shield and a fortress for those who feel vulnerable in these uncertain times. I pray specifically for the families struggling under the weight of economic pressure and the rising costs of survival. I ask that you open doors of opportunity where there seem to be only walls, and that you provide for every need out of your infinite abundance. I pray for the weary, for those who are waking up in the middle of the night because of the tremors or the strange sounds in the sky. I ask that you replace their anxiety with a peace that surpasses all human understanding. Reach out and touch those who are battling illness or fear, and let them feel a physical warmth and a renewed strength in their bodies right now. We lift up our nation and this world as it navigates the rumors of wars and the shaking of the very foundations of society. We ask for wisdom for our leaders, but more importantly, we ask for spiritual clarity for ourselves. Give us the eyes to see these signs not as a reason to panic, but as a reason to prepare our hearts. I pray that when the ground in Yellowstone stirs, or when the Atlantic moisture turns into a violent storm, your hand would be over the homes of those who seek your face. You are the same power that calmed the raging seas with a single word, and we ask for that same stillness to descend upon our lives today. I claim a hedge of protection around your children, your elderly, and your livelihoods. May your homes be a sanctuary where no plague or disaster can enter. And may you walk through these coming months with a confidence that isn't rooted in the news, but in the divine. It is a documented historical fact that whenever these shouts or trumpet sounds have been recorded in the past, they have preceded massive shifts in human history, suggesting that what we are hearing isn't noise, but a cosmic invitation to look up. Have you felt that strange internal pull lately, as if your soul knows something that your mind is still trying to grasp? We are living in the most significant era of human existence, and I want you to know that you are not here by accident. You were chosen to be a witness to these events. I want to thank you for walking this path with us. If this prayer and this research have brought you even a small measure of peace or clarity, please make sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of this unfolding mystery. I truly value your presence here, and I want to keep this conversation going. Please leave a comment with the word Amen or share your own personal prayer requests below. I promise you that I read through them, and I will continue to carry your names and your concerns in my prayers as we move forward. We are a community bound by faith and a search for the truth, and we will face whatever comes next together, standing firm and unafraid. Until we meet again in the next video, may you stay safe, may you stay blessed, and may you find shelter under the wings of the Almighty. It is a documented historical fact that whenever these shouts or trumpet sounds have been recorded in the past, they have preceded massive shifts in human history, suggesting that what we are hearing isn't noise, but a cosmic invitation to look up. Have you felt that strange internal pull lately, as if your soul knows something that your mind is still trying to grasp? We are living in the most significant era of human existence, and I want you to know that you are not here by accident. You were chosen to be a witness to these events. I want to thank you for walking this path with us. If this prayer and this research have brought you even a small measure of peace or clarity, please make sure to like the video and subscribe so you don't miss the next chapter of this unfolding mystery. I truly value your presence here, and I want to keep this conversation going. Please leave a comment with the word Amen or share your own personal prayer requests below. I promise you that I read through them, and I will continue to carry your names and your concerns in my prayers as we move forward. We are a community bound by faith and a search for the truth, and we will face whatever comes next together, standing firm and unafraid.